The American Defense Secretary says that the United States believes that chemical weapons may have been used by government forces in Syria. Speaking in Abu Dhabi, Chuck Hagel said U.S. intelligence has information that sarin gas had been used on a small scale.
The U.S. intelligence community assesses with some degree of varying confidence that the Syrian regime has used chemical weapons on a small scale in Syria, specifically the chemical agent sarin. As I've said, the intelligence community has been assessing information for some time on this issue, and the decision to reach this conclusion was made within the past 24 hours. And I've been in contact with senior officials in Washington today, and most recently the last couple of hours, on this issue. We cannot confirm the origin of these weapons, but we do believe that any use of chemical weapons in Syria would very likely have been originated with the Assad regime.
Well, here in Britain, the Foreign Office says it's seen persuasive information from various sources showing that chemical weapons were used in Syria, including sarin. Well, Majid Rafizadeh is a Middle East expert at Harvard International Review and president of International American Council. Majid, do you believe that the Syrian government would have used sarin gas?
Right. Hello. I think it's very difficult to detect the use of chemical weapon. If we look at the umbrella of weapon of mass destruction, the three categories: the nuclear weapon, biological weapon, and chemical weapon. Chemical weapon is one of the most difficult ones to detect. In order to detect and to be confident that chemical weapon is used, the only way is to collect the soil on the site promptly and to examine the soil or to examine the victims. And Syria has not allowed UN inspectors inside the country or other independent organizations inside the country to really have an independent investigation. So it is very difficult to detect that. But on the other hand, if we see that when the reports of chemical weapons comes out, we see that it's at a time that usually the rebels have gained some territory inside the country, and the regime has been some sort of felt vulnerable towards the opposition. So they start either using the chemical weapon in a small scale, or either just propagating the use of chemical weapon to threaten the opposition or particularly the Arab Gulf states that are funding the rebels, that the Syrian government is still superior and it has a higher capability and it can use them against the opposition.
You heard the U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel speaking in Abu Dhabi a few moments ago. He says that they have some evidence that sarin gas may have been used. And we heard also from the Foreign Office here in Britain saying they've got persuasive information from various sources showing chemical weapons were used in Syria. Where would they have got their information from?
Well, you find now, well, particularly they say that they're communicating with the Israel's intelligence. So the reports first came out of the Israeli intelligence. But again, there have been some mixed messages because the Prime Minister Netanyahu, he said that he cannot confirm the reports. He's not in a position to assess the intelligence. But at the same time, these reports before also came from the last two times came from Britain and France. And the case is that there has not been a physical proof because, as I said, it's difficult to get into the country and to examine the soil or to see the victims. So they basically have used second-hand some sort of evidence that they have to see if chemical weapon is used inside the country or not. And again, I say United States is a very complicated situation now because President Obama first came out saying that the use of chemical weapon is a red line and it's a game changer. It will change the calculus and the United States more likely to intervene. But then when the reports came out, the Obama administration, they amended the statement, and they said that we meant not small scale, we meant in a large scale. If you want to give example, like Saddam Hussein, when he used chemical weapon against the Kurds, against the 40 villages, then the United States will take action. So U.S. now is a very complicated situation. That's why they mentioned that in a varying degree of confidence, they believe that chemical weapon is used. And the second question is, they argue that even if it's used, we have to know who used it and how it is used, and then we will take action.
Well, we need to be wary of comparing it to the invasion of Iraq for weapons of mass destruction. We know that a lot of the evidence that invasion was based on was false, not least embarrassing Colin Powell, amongst other people. That aside, though, is what the president is Washington's position at the moment, that small use of chemical weapons is acceptable, but would not necessarily warrant a U.S. intervention, but a large use of chemical weapons is unacceptable and would warrant a U.S. intervention. Is that what you're saying?
No, they definitely they make a definite statement that any use of chemical weapon is unacceptable.
Right.
But because the stakes are so high in Syria, and because of the mistakes that the United States, in case of Iraq, that there was no chemical weapon, so the bars are much higher. The standards are much higher now for the United States, and because of the military capability of the United States, the standard is really high. They put it high in order to intervene inside Syria, and the standard is now that there should be large scale. There should be 100% confident first that Assad regime has used the chemical weapon, and second of all, that should be in a large scale. Then the United States will take action. Again, the taking action doesn't mean intervening directly. There are some Pentagon contingency plan that they can strike the facilities in Syria, or they can deactivate the chemical weapon because the U.S. has that technology. So there are different plans.
I see. But if this is proved, if these incidents now that we're talking about tonight, if those are proved, America will take some form of action against Syria?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I don't believe now the United States is in a position to intervene unilaterally or even intervene with the help of Western allies or Arab Gulf states inside Syria. And the reason I'm saying that is that, first of all, there is no public support in the United States for intervening in Syria. Because of one of the reasons is the sequester and the budget cut across the border and the economic austerity. So there is really no public support for intervening in Syria. And I don't think the United States wants now to be bogged down in Syria like it was bogged down in Iraq. And if the United States intervene in Syria, then that would drag Russia, that would drag China, that would drag Iran and other states inside Syria.
Majid, many thanks. Majid Rafizadeh, the Middle East expert at the Harvard International Review.